Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White. This is Jason's Weird Reads, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. Now, we have just passed the mid-year point, and I wanted to do my top 10 list. I wanted to wait until at least early July to do my top 10 list and the mid-year freakout tag, because it never fails. I always do it early, and then a book comes along that I absolutely love and wish I talked about in one of these two videos. So I do these videos every year, at least I try to. So let's get into the tag, shall we? And first of all, I don't think anybody tagged me. And on that, I don't think this is necessarily a tagging video. I think this is just something you do. This is something I do anyway to sort of keep track of the year. I like to look back on it at the end of the year just to see what was here and to see how it's changed because of the books I read in the second half of the year. So here we go. Mid-year freakout tag 2024. The first prompt. Best book you've read so far in 2024. This is very difficult, honestly. I've read so many good books this year. I thought last year was a really good year, but it pales in comparison to what I've been reading this year. But I ended up going with You Like It Darker by Stephen King. Now, because I'm weird and I don't make sense, this didn't make my top 10 list because I don't like adding collections of short stories to... I like keeping my top 10 end of year and mid-year lists to novels only. If I read enough short story collections, I would do that. But this is definitely my favorite so far of the year, and that kind of surprised me a little bit, honestly, because I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much. And there's one story in here that there's like 3 stories in here I really, really loved. That, they're types of stories that only Stephen King can write. And one of them is Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. That one, a lot of people are going on about this one, and rightly so. It's more of a novella. It's about 150 pages long, and you're not going to regret reading this one, I don't think. The next one, The Turbulence Expert, was really good too. I really liked that. But the next one I really enjoyed was Rattlesnakes, which is the sequel. There's like a large span of time between stories, but it's the sequel of Cujo. And also The Answer Man at the end of the book. Now, The Answer Man is sort of a slice of life story, and it's kind of literary in the sense that it's a character study, and you follow this character for their entire life. It's another novella, I would say, and like I said, you follow this guy through his life, from graduating high school to going to college to getting a job, his career, to all the way till he's about to die. And there's 3 periods with each important thing that happens in his life, each important sort of graduation to the next level, you could say. He comes across this sign while he's driving down the road that says Answer Man 2 miles ahead. And the Answer Man is this guy where you can pay to ask questions and he'll tell you the answer. It doesn't matter what the question is. The only thing is he doesn't want you to expect that he's a fortune teller, but he will have the answers to what you're looking for. And so our main character, he asks the questions and he gets answers, and sometimes he doesn't like the answers, and then we get to see those answers sort of come about within the story of this man's life, and it's just fascinating. Nobody can write stories like this. Only Stephen King can, and he's a treasure. I absolutely love Stephen King. Over the past year or so, since I've been catching up on my Stephen King, I have fallen head over heels for his writing. He's a master. He's a master storyteller. There's no that's it. That's just as simple as that. Okay, next question. Best sequel you've read so far in 2024. Now, following what I just said about Stephen King, you're going to see some Stephen Kings in this video. There's definitely some Stephen King in this video, because the next book here, for this question, the best sequel I've read, I've only read like 2, maybe 3 sequels this year, but the best has to go to The Drawing of the Three, Dark Tower, book number 2 by Stephen King. This book, I read it, this is my second reading of it, but it's more, I found it way more fun the second time around than I did the first time. I loved it. It's just such a good book. It's crazy, and that's what I love about it. From beginning to the end, it's pulpy. It's fun. It's got some serious themes going on in it. It's just insane how good it is. Next question: new release you haven't read yet but want to. There's a couple. I bought this one recently, Small Town Horror by Paul Tremblay. I really want to read it. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, though, because the last question here is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And you'll see why I might have trouble fitting this in, but I want to get to it as soon as possible. And also, Small Town Horror by one of my new favorite authors, Ronald Melfi. I got to fit this in whenever possible because it looks great, and I absolutely adore Ronald Melfi's writing. I'm hoping to get him on the channel sometime in the future. Right now I think he's really busy, so keep your eyes peeled for that. It might happen sometime, might not. Alright, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Now there's a few, but I'm going to narrow this down to one for time's sake, and that is Not a Speck of Light by Laird Barron. Now, Laird Barron hasn't released a short story collection in quite a few years, and this is a short story collection. And that title and the cover, I'll put the cover there. It seems like this one's going to be very grim. I'm not too sure. I know that Laird Barron went through a health scare in 2023, early 2023, and we almost lost him. So I don't know if this collection is reflecting that at all, but I'm glad he's still here. And I'm glad that I get to purchase this book and read it and hopefully talk to him, because I reached out to him a few months ago. It's a little premature. I was like, in September, do you want to talk? Because I've talked to him before on the Darkness Dwells podcast and one or two other podcasts. And he said, yeah, sure. He enjoyed talking to me those times. So you might see him again near the end of this year. We'll see. Because I have some other plans that I'm hoping to be able to to fit in. Sometimes it's like I put way too much food on the plate and I just can't eat it all, if you know what I'm talking about. My eyes are way bigger in my stomach. Alright, so next question. My biggest disappointment of 2024 so far is The Watchers by A.M. Shine. A lot of people love this book, and it was adapted recently by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. I can't remember her name, and my book club picked this book. I think it was our February read. Pretty sure it was either January or February, and I read it, and I just could not get into it. I pushed myself to finish it, and I just didn't like it. Honestly, I liked the second maybe quarter of it better than the rest of the book, but I don't know, it's just one of those books that didn't gel with me. But this is like one of those books that everyone seems to love, and that's fine, you know. Not every book is going to please me, but this book really just did not rub me the right way. I wish it did, but I'm sorry, but it didn't. Alright, biggest surprise. Well, there's a few big surprises here. The first one is that I'm actually tackling the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Once I started doing my Stephen King catch-up project, I knew that I'd have to tackle the Dark Tower at some point, and I was kind of nervous about that. But then I saw Sin from Sin's Book Nook. She was talking about how she wanted to read on her channel the Dark Tower, and she wasn't sure if she'd be able to do it because she's a lot like me. She'll read the first 3 books of a series and then just stop, and sometimes for no reason. You're really enjoying yourself, but then you end up taking a month or 2 off. It's a fire truck or something. Anyways, you end up taking a month or 2 off between books, and then you just never go back to it. That's one of my biggest problems. So long story short, I was like, on her channel, I commented, hey man, you want like a accountability buddy? I will buddy read these with you. And she answered back, she said, I would love an accountability buddy because I want to finish this series. And then my creative brain, the way it works, was like, I could turn this into a podcast series because I've been wanting to do more than just talk with authors about their new books and whatnot. I want to talk about just favorite, common favorite horror books within the community with certain people, not just me, but to have discussions about books with people. So I was like, this is a great first one, or first experiment, or first project for that. And so I contacted her about that, and she seemed more willing. So you can check that out on the Weird Reads podcast. I keep wanting to call it project for some reason. I guess it is a project all on its own. And in the future, there will be more by other authors, with other authors and booktubers. So stay tuned for that. The next surprise was The Return by Rachel Harrison. Rachel Harrison is a name that gets kind of thrown around here and there within the horror community, and I never read her, and I kind of felt bad about that, and I just wanted to read some Rachel Harrison, so I read The Return, and I'm so glad I did because it's a very, very good book. I was surprised at how good it was, and I was also surprised by how freaky the ending of this book was. It goes into some territory, let me tell you. And last one here, I was very surprised at, and I've mentioned this a few times, I was very surprised at how gory The Mindworms by Nicholas Kaufman went. It was just, the first eating scene, now when I say eating scene, if you read this book, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil it, but the first eating scene was just like, oh my God, and it just doesn't stop. It just goes on. And I was like, Nick, Nick, are you okay? All right, next up. New favorite author, debut or new to you, and it's definitely new to me because he's been writing for quite a while now, but that's Ronald Malfi. I've read 2 of his books now, Black Mouth and Come With Me, and both of them are like new favorites, so I have to label him as a new favorite author. I'm pretty sure I'm going to love everything I read by him. I might not, of course, but he's just so good. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. And next question, new fictional crush, and the answer for this is the same every year. I don't think I've ever had a fictional crush, so there's none of that here. Newest favorite character, and I'm definitely going with Oi from the Dark Tower series. He's like a dog-like creature, and a Billy Bumbler, I believe. He's just so cute and such a smart dog. Such a smart, you can communicate with this dog. It doesn't exactly talk, but it kind of talks in a way. And I would love to have him as a companion. And also Roland from the Dark Towers is becoming a favorite because he's such a deep, complex character. And he comes across as gruff and macho in a sense. When you first meet him, you don't like him. He's a terrible person, but he grows, and this is the most fascinating part of him, and why he's become a favorite of mine is because he's this tough guy who seemed like he would never even consider self-reflection as a thing, but then he surprises you, and he does that, and he changes, and he grows as a person. I don't know how it's going to end. It might turn out to be completely wrong. I could be completely wrong about this, but as the novel or the story progresses and into the series, but I guess we'll see. All right, a book that made me cry. And there's a few books that should have, like the ending to Cujo should have. Its sequel in You Like It Darker, Rattlesnakes, that story should have made me cry. But I didn't cry for those ones. I felt like crying sometimes, but it just didn't happen. The story that did make me cry was another Stephen King story, and that's Joyland. I read Joyland, and the ending for that book made me tear up. And I was tearing up throughout the last half of that book, off and on, because Stephen King, he'll tell you what's going to happen a lot of the time, and I just knew it was going to happen, the thing that would make me tear up. And I kept envisioning it in my head, and every time I envisioned it, it would make me tear up, and then it happened, and I I again teared up. And so yeah, Joyland by Stephen King is a great story. I loved it. Book that made you happy is the next question, and I would have to say Portable Magic by Mark Allen Gunnels. This is a collection of short stories that would have made my top 10 list if I didn't consider Mark Allen Gunnels as a friend, and B, it wasn't a short story collection, but it is a short story collection, and they're all kind of loosely wrapped with a wraparound. But the whole collection is an ode to the love of reading, and reading this book just filled me with nostalgia in a sense as to why I love reading. It really captures that love of reading and why we readers read. I highly recommend you checking it out if you too love reading. It's not horror though. It's more of like a fantasy in a sense. Not epic fantasy or anything. It just has fantasy elements to it. And the way that maybe Ray Bradbury, you could consider him a fantasy writer. Next question, second to last here, is most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. And I have two of them. I already showed them off, so I'll be quick. But Ronald Malfi's Small Town Horror. I just love the lighthouse on there. It's on the back too, but it's just so dark and grim, and it feels like a Ronald Malfi book in my opinion. And also You Like It Darker by Stephen King. This is just such a fantastic cover, and it wraps around to body of an alligator as an island, and there's like palm trees growing out of his skull. Last question. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Now, there's like a few, because I had some plans at the beginning of the year, and well, some of those plans have changed, but some of them got pushed back, and some of them evolved. The new plan is to finish the Dark Tower series and talk about them on the podcast with Sin, and there's only 3 books left. Now, one of them is like 900 pages, and that's the last book, The Dark Tower, which I have right here. And the one I'm reading now, The Wolves of the Kala, is like 700 or 800 pages. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we'll finish it by probably sometime in the fall, early fall to mid fall. I also want to read the Isaiah Coleridge series by Laird Barron. First book is right here. The first book is Blood Standard, and I want to reread this series because I want to talk to Laird Barron about these books. There's a fourth one that is like a novella length that I want to read as well. I need to start getting on these like ASAP because September and October, when I said I would talk to Laird Barron, is coming up very quickly, so I need to make these my summertime project, along with the Dark Tower series. And lastly, I had wanted to be done the Indian Lake trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones by now, but it got pushed back because of some of these other like interviews and whatnot. So I'm hoping to do that in the fall, perhaps when I'm done the Isaiah Coleridge series. So we'll see. It might get pushed back to next year. I don't know, but we'll see. So there is my mid-year freakout tag. There's definitely some concern, and there's definitely some reasons for me to be freaking out because yeah, it's like seriously, that ending. What books do I need to read by the end of the year? I don't need to read them, but I want to try and push myself to do it. Just to have it done and to have some hopefully interesting content out there, and also just for my own reading pleasure. But we'll see. If it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. But yeah, I'm not freaking out. You're the one who's freaking out. All right, so that's my answers. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you for watching. And if you did watch, maybe leave me an emoji of your choice, and I'll leave you some emojis in return. Leave me 2 or 3 of them, and I'll leave you 2 or 3 in return. Thank you for watching. Keep being weird, my friends, and keep being creative, and I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.